My granddaughter forged my 83-year-old grandma's signature on 47 documents to steal $7 million. I'm forensic handwriting expert who caught her. My granddaughter Ashley forged my 83-year-old grandmother's signature on 47 different legal and financial documents over 3 years to systematically transfer $7 million in assets into her own name. She practiced grandma's signature hundreds of times until she could replicate it perfectly. She created fake witnesses. She backdated documents. She even forged notary stamps. She built an elaborate paper trail that made it appear grandma had willingly given her everything, when in reality, grandma had no idea any of this was happening until it was almost too late. Ashley would visit grandma weekly, bringing flowers and groceries, playing the devoted granddaughter, while simultaneously visiting banks and attorneys' offices with forged documents, transferring property deeds, changing account beneficiaries, creating new trusts with herself as sole beneficiary, emptying investment accounts. She was so confident in her forgery skills, she believed she'd never be caught. When Grandma finally discovered that her house had been sold without her knowledge, and Ashley had pocketed the $2.3 million proceeds, Ashley smiled and said, "You signed the sale documents 6 months ago, Grandma. Don't you remember? You're getting forgetful in your old age. Maybe it's time to let me handle everything for you. You should be grateful I'm taking care of these complicated matters." But I'm Dr. Catherine Hayes, 48 years old, a forensic document examiner and handwriting analysis expert who's testified in over 300 criminal trials. I've spent 26 years detecting forgeries and proving document fraud. I can identify a forged signature from microscopic stroke patterns and pen pressure analysis. Ashley thought she was a skilled forger, but she was an amateur compared to the experts who analyze this professionally. She made critical mistakes that would destroy her. This is the story of how my granddaughter systematically forged my grandmother's signature on dozens of documents to steal everything she owned, and how I used forensic document examination to prove every single forgery, get Ashley convicted of 47 counts of felony fraud, send her to prison for 22 years, and recover every penny she stole. My grandmother Margaret Hayes was 83 years old in 2021, and she was remarkable. She'd been a real estate investor for 50 years, building a substantial portfolio. She owned her home in Austin, Texas, worth $2.3 million. She owned 4 rental properties worth collectively $3.8 million. She had investment accounts worth $1.4 million, total estate approximately $7.5 million. Grandma was sharp and independent. She managed everything herself. She was proud of what she'd built, and she intended to leave it split equally among her 4 grandchildren. Myself, Catherine, age 48, my brother Michael, age 46, my cousin Ashley, age 38, and my cousin David, age 35. I'm extremely close to Grandma. We talk almost daily. I visit at least twice a week. I'm a forensic document examiner working with the Texas Rangers and federal agencies. I specialize in handwriting analysis, signature verification, question documents. I've built a career on detecting forgeries and fraud. Grandma has always been proud of my expertise and often jokes that no one could ever forge her signature while I'm around. Ashley had always been the problematic grandchild. She'd struggled financially her entire adult life. She'd had several failed business ventures. She'd borrowed money from family members, including Grandma, and never repaid it. She'd declared bankruptcy twice. By 2020, Ashley was desperate for money. She'd lost her marketing job. She was facing eviction. She owed over $200,000 to various creditors. She needed a major influx of cash, and she knew Grandma had millions. In early 2021, Ashley started visiting Grandma much more frequently. She'd show up with flowers and homemade meals. She'd offer to help Grandma with paperwork and errands. She'd spend hours chatting with Grandma about family and memories. Grandma was delighted because Ashley had never been particularly attentive before. She told me during one of our phone calls, "Ashley has been such a sweetheart lately. visiting all the time and being so helpful. I think she's really matured. It's wonderful to see. I was cautiously hopeful, but something about Ashley's sudden devotion felt performative. She'd never cared much about Grandma before, and now she was there constantly. But I dismissed my suspicions as unfair. People can change, and maybe Ashley was genuinely trying to be a better granddaughter. What I didn't know was that Ashley was using those visits to study Grandma's signature. Every time Grandma signed something in front of Ashley, whether it was a check or a greeting card or a delivery receipt, Ashley was memorizing the stroke patterns, the letter formations, the pen pressure, the speed. She was building a mental model of how to replicate it. She'd go home and practice for hours tracing Grandma's signature, then trying to reproduce it freehand, then practicing until her forgeries looked nearly identical to the original. Ashley spent months perfecting her forgery technique before she ever used it for fraud. The first forgery happened in June 2021. Ashley went to Grandma's bank with a forged letter supposedly signed by Grandma, requesting to add Ashley as joint owner on one of Grandma's investment accounts worth $400,000. The letter included Grandma's signature that Ashley had forged. It looked remarkably similar to Grandma's real signature, similar enough that the bank employee didn't question it. They added Ashley as joint owner, and she immediately began transferring money from that account into her personal accounts. Over the next 2 months, Ashley transferred $380,000 in increments, small enough not to trigger immediate fraud alerts. Grandma had multiple accounts and didn't check this particular one frequently, so she didn't notice the depletion until months later. Emboldened by her success, Ashley began forging more documents. In August 2021, she forged a deed transferring one of Grandma's rental properties in her name. She created a fake notary stamp using equipment she bought online. She forged the notary's signature. She forged Grandma's signature on the deed. She filed it with the county clerk's office, and it was accepted as legitimate. Ashley now legally owned a property worth $850,000 that she'd stolen through forgery. She immediately took out a mortgage against the property and pocketed $600,000. In September 2021, Ashley forged documents changing the beneficiary on another of Grandma's investment accounts from all 4 grandchildren, equally to Ashley exclusively, again using forged signatures and fake witnesses. When Grandma eventually died, Ashley would inherit that entire $350,000 account. Over the next 2 years, Ashley forged 47 separate documents, each one transferring assets from Grandma to herself, each one using increasingly sophisticated forgery techniques: property deeds, account beneficiary changes, trust documents, powers of attorney, sale contracts, loan documents. Ashley created an entire paper trail of fraud. She was meticulous. She varied the signatures slightly, the way a real person's signature varies naturally. She used different pens to match what Grandma typically used. She carefully matched the pen pressure and stroke speed. To a casual observer, the signatures looked completely legitimate, but to a trained forensic document examiner like me, they had telltale signs of forgery, hesitation marks where Ashley paused while tracing unnatural pen pressure distribution, stroke sequences that were slightly wrong, tremor patterns from trying to copy rather than writing naturally. These are microscopic details that most people can't see, but I'm trained to detect. Everything came crashing down in October 2023 when Grandma received a call from a title company asking about the closing on her house sale. Grandma was confused. "I haven't sold my house. What are you talking about?" The title company representative explained that they were processing the sale of her property at 1247 Maple Street, Austin, Texas. The sale was finalized 2 weeks ago. The closing documents were signed. The buyer had paid $2.3 million. The funds had been dispersed to the seller account. Everything was complete. Grandma was in shock. She immediately called me. "Catherine, something terrible has happened. Someone sold my house. I never signed any documents. I never agreed to sell, but the title company says I signed everything, and the sale is complete. I don't understand how this is possible. I need your help. I drove to Grandma's house immediately. She showed me the documents the title company had emailed her. There were dozens of pages, sale contracts, closing statements, deed transfers, mortgage satisfaction letters. Every single document had signatures that appeared to be Grandma's. I looked at them carefully with my trained eye, and I immediately saw the signs of forgery. The signatures were good. Very good. Whoever did this had skill, but they weren't perfect. I could see the telltale indicators that these were traced or carefully copied rather than naturally written. I asked Grandma if she had any idea who could have done this. The only people who had that level of access to your signature and your documents would be family. Grandma thought carefully and said, Ashley has been visiting a lot. She's helped me with paperwork sometimes, but surely Ashley wouldn't. She's my granddaughter. She loves me. I told Grandma that we needed to investigate because someone had stolen $2.3 million from her, and we needed to find out who and recover the money. I contacted the title company and requested all original documents related to the house sale. When they sent the documents, I performed a complete forensic examination using stereoscopic microscopy to examine the pen strokes, using electrostatic detection to look for indented writing, using infrared and ultraviolet analysis to examine ink properties, using digital imaging to measure pressure patterns, every technique in the forensic document examiner toolkit. What I found was definitive proof of forgery. The signatures on all documents showed signs of simulation. That's the technical term for copying a signature. The pen lifts were in the wrong places. The stroke sequences didn't match how Grandma naturally writes. There were hesitation marks where the forger paused to check their work. The pressure patterns were inconsistent with natural writing. Most damning, there were microscopic tremors throughout the signatures. These tremors occur when someone is concentrating very hard on copying rather than writing naturally. I've seen them in thousands of forgeries, and they're almost impossible to eliminate even for skilled forgers. I compared the question signatures to exemplars of Grandma's genuine signatures that I'd collected over years. I had birthday cards, checks, letters, documents that I knew with certainty Grandma had signed. I performed detailed comparisons using superimposition techniques and digital analysis. The question signatures matched Grandma's genuine signatures in overall appearance, but differed in dozens of microscopic details that proved they were forgeries. I also found something interesting. When I examined multiple questioned documents from different dates, the forged signatures were too consistent. Real signatures vary naturally from one instance to another. No one signs their name exactly the same way every time. There are natural variations in size, slant, letter formation, but these forged signatures across multiple documents were almost identical. That's called signature uniformity, and it's a classic sign of forgery. It means someone practiced a signature template and reproduced it repeatedly, rather than writing naturally. Ashley had made the mistake of being too consistent. I took all my analysis to the Austin Police Department Fraud Division. I filed a criminal complaint against Ashley for forgery, fraud, and theft. I presented my forensic examination reports. I showed them 47 documents with forged signatures. I explained that this was systematic fraud over 2 years, resulting in theft of approximately $7 million in assets. The detectives took it very seriously because the evidence was overwhelming. They obtained a search warrant for Ashley's residence. When they searched her apartment, they found the smoking gun. Ashley had kept a notebook where she practiced forging Grandma's signature. Page after page filled with signature attempts. Some crossed out and marked bad, others circled and marked good. There were notes about pen angle and pressure, about stroke sequence, about making the signatures look natural. This notebook was direct evidence that Ashley had deliberately practiced forgery with intent to deceive. There was also a second notebook where Ashley had documented every document she'd forged with dates and amounts stolen. She'd kept a detailed fraud log, like she was proud of her accomplishment. It listed all 47 documents with notes like rental property property, deed filed, August 2021, estimated value $850,000, and investment account beneficiary changed. September 2021, value $350,000. It was a complete confession in her own handwriting. Police also found the equipment Ashley had used to create fake notary stamps. She'd purchased a stamp-making kit online and created replica stamps of several notaries whose stamps appeared on legitimate documents she'd seen. She'd used these fake stamps to make her forged documents appear officially notarized. Creating a fake notary stamp is a federal crime punishable by up to 10 years in prison. Ashley had committed dozens of federal crimes. They found her computer with files containing scanned images of Grandma's real signatures that Ashley had been using as templates, with research on forgery techniques, with communications to document template sellers, with evidence of exactly how she'd planned and executed the fraud. Ashley was arrested at her apartment. She was charged with 47 counts of forgery, 47 counts of fraud, 47 counts of theft, 23 counts of notary fraud, 13 counts of identity theft, and 3 counts of money laundering, over 130 felony charges. She was facing potentially 200 years in prison if convicted on all counts. Ashley's attorney tried to claim the signatures were genuine, that Grandma had actually signed the documents but was now confused about it due to age-related memory issues. This defense required attacking Grandma's mental competence, which was both cruel and ineffective. I testified at a preliminary hearing, presenting my forensic analysis. I showed the microscopic evidence of forgery. I showed the practice notebooks. I showed the fraud log. I showed the signature uniformity analysis. I explained in technical detail exactly how I knew these were forgeries. The judge found probable cause for all charges and ordered Ashley held on $2 million bail, which she couldn't pay. She remained in custody, awaiting trial. Meanwhile, I worked with attorneys to reverse all the fraudulent transactions. Because every document was forged, they were all void. Property deeds were reversed. Account beneficiary changes were undone. The house sale was nullified and the buyers were refunded their $2.3 million from Ashley's accounts. Unfortunately, Ashley had already spent most of the money. She'd paid off her debts, bought a car, taken expensive vacations, purchased jewelry. Only about $1.8 million of the $7 million could be immediately recovered. The rest would require seizing Ashley's assets and garnishing future earnings, assuming she ever had any. Ashley's trial began in April 2024. It lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented devastating evidence. My forensic document examination reports proving all 47 signatures were forged, the practice notebook showing Ashley's deliberate forgery preparation, the fraud log documenting her crimes, the fake notary stamps, the computer files with signature templates, testimony from multiple document examiners confirming my analysis, testimony from the banks and title companies about the fraudulent transactions, testimony from Grandma about never signing any of these documents, testimony from multiple witnesses who'd seen Ashley visiting Grandma frequently during the period when the forgeries occurred. I testified for 2 full days. I walked the jury through the science of handwriting analysis. I explained how signatures can be distinguished from forgeries through microscopic analysis. I showed them enlarged photographs of the questioned signatures with annotations pointing out every indicator of forgery. I showed them comparison charts showing the differences between Grandma's genuine signatures and Ashley's forgeries. I explained signature uniformity and tremor patterns and stroke sequence errors. I made the science accessible to lay people and the jury was completely engaged. At the end of my testimony, even Ashley's defense attorney had no meaningful cross-examination. You can't argue with microscopic photographic evidence and scientific analysis. The defense tried to argue that Ashley believed Grandma had actually given her these assets, that she wasn't trying to steal but thought she was entitled to them. This argument collapsed when the prosecution prosecution presented the fraud log notebook. If Ashley thought she was entitled to the assets, why did she keep a secret notebook documenting her forgeries? Why did she practice signatures in secret? Why did she create fake notary stamps? Everything she did showed consciousness of guilt and deliberate deception. The defense also tried to argue that the forensic analysis was subjective, that handwriting analysis isn't real science. I was prepared for this because it's a common defense tactic. I presented my qualifications, my 26 years of experience, my testimony in over 300 trials, with a 100% record of my conclusions being upheld. I explained that forensic document examination is recognized by every major court system in the world, that it's based on physical evidence and scientific principles, that my conclusions weren't opinions, but facts based on measurable, observable data. The jury accepted my testimony as credible science. Ashley took the stand in her own defense, which was a massive mistake. Under cross-examination, the prosecutor asked her directly, "Did you practice forging your grandmother's signature?" Ashley hesitated, then admitted, "Yes." "Did you create fake notary stamps?" "Yes." "Did you forge your grandmother's signature on 47 documents?" Ashley claimed she only did it because Grandma had promised her those assets, and she was just making the paperwork match Grandma's wishes. The prosecutor then showed her the fraud log. "If your grandmother promised you these assets, why did you keep this secret log calling them forgeries? Why did you document amounts stolen? Why did you hide this from everyone?" Ashley broke down, crying, and admitted she knew it was wrong, but she'd needed the money and she thought she'd never get caught. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They came back with guilty verdicts on 128 of the 133 charges. They acquitted on 5 minor charges, but convicted on all the major forgery, fraud, and theft counts. Ashley's face showed no emotion when the verdicts were read. She seemed to have accepted that her life was over. Sentencing was in June 2024. The judge was harsh. "Ms. Hayes, you systematically defrauded your 83-year-old grandmother over a period of 3 years. You forged 47 separate documents. You stole $7 million in assets. You created an elaborate scheme involving fake notary stamps and practiced forgery techniques. You documented your crimes in a notebook like a trophy. You showed no remorse until you were caught. You betrayed your grandmother's trust in the most calculated way possible. The court finds that you are a danger to anyone who might trust you, particularly elderly family members. Your crimes required sophistication and planning, which makes them more serious, not less. I am sentencing you to 22 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 18 years. You will also pay full restitution of $7 million. Though the court recognizes you may never be able to pay this amount, you are permanently banned from serving in any fiduciary capacity for anyone ever. 22 years. Ashley was 38 years old. She'd be 60 at minimum before parole consideration. Her entire adult life spent in prison for money she'd already spent and never got to keep. The criminal conviction meant all the forged documents were officially voided. Grandma's estate was restored to exactly what it had been before Ashley's fraud began. Some assets had to be repurchased or recovered through legal processes, but eventually Grandma got everything back. She updated her will to explicitly disinherit Ashley, stating, "I leave nothing to my granddaughter Ashley Hayes, who systematically forged my signature and stole from me for 3 years. She is dead to me. I hope she spends the rest of her life in prison." Grandma dictated that language herself. She was done being forgiving. Grandma is now 86 years old. She's still sharp and independent. She's recovered emotionally from the trauma of Ashley's betrayal, though she says it took time to trust anyone again. She's proud that I used my professional expertise to catch Ashley and get justice. She says, "Having a forensic document examiner in the family was the best insurance policy against fraud she could have had. If I hadn't been able to prove the forgeries definitively, Ashley might have gotten away with everything." Ashley is currently incarcerated at Texas Department of Criminal Justice, serving year 1 of her minimum 18-year sentence. She's written letters to Grandma and to other family members begging for forgiveness and asking us to appeal for her sentence reduction. Every letter has been returned unopened. There is no forgiveness for deliberately forging dozens of documents to rob an elderly woman. Ashley made calculated choices over 3 years. She practiced forgery techniques. She created fake notary stamps. She documented her crimes. She showed no remorse until caught. She deserves every single year of that 22-year sentence. Her criminal record means she'll be a convicted forger when released. She'll never be able to work in finance, legal services, real estate, or any field requiring trust. She'll be a 60-year-old felon with no prospects. She destroyed her life trying to steal from her grandmother and gained nothing but 2 decades in prison. I've used Ashley's case as a teaching example in my forensic document examination courses. I teach law enforcement and document examiners exactly what to look for in forgery cases, what microscopic indicators reveal simulation, how to properly collect and compare signature exemplars, how to testify effectively about forgery evidence, how to explain complex handwriting analysis to juries in understandable terms. I show Ashley's practice notebooks and fraud logs as examples of evidence that can make or break a case. If Ashley's crimes can help train better document examiners to catch other forgers, then something positive came from this nightmare. I've also presented Ashley's case at professional conferences. I've published papers about the forensic techniques I used to prove the forgeries. I've helped establish best practices for signature verification that banks and title companies can use to prevent similar fraud. Grandma's experience has contributed to making the financial system safer for elderly people. Some people have told me I was harsh for pursuing such severe charges against my own cousin. Those people don't understand the magnitude of what Ashley did. She didn't make one mistake. She committed systematic fraud over 3 years. She forged 47 separate documents. She created fake government stamps. She practiced deception techniques. She documented her crimes like she was proud of them. She stole $7 million from an elderly grandmother who trusted her. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. It was calculated long-term criminal enterprise. Ashley deserves 22 years and more. The fact that she's my cousin doesn't change that she's a dangerous predator who destroyed an elderly woman's financial security for personal gain. I have no sympathy for Ashley. She had every opportunity to make different choices. She could have asked Grandma for help with her financial problems. She could have gotten a legitimate job. She could have filed bankruptcy again. Instead, she chose to become a skilled forger and commit 100 felonies. She chose to betray family trust in the most despicable way. She chose to practice forgery techniques and create fake notary stamps. Every choice was deliberate and calculated. She deserves the consequences. Grandma has established the Margaret Hayes Document Fraud Prevention Fund using part of the recovered assets. The fund provides grants to law enforcement agencies for forensic document examination equipment and training. Grandma wants to make it easier for police to catch document forgers and prevent fraud against elderly people. She says if her experience can help protect even one other elderly person, then the trauma was worth something. I administer the fund, and we've already provided over $200,000 in grants to agencies across Texas. We've funded microscope purchases, training courses, software for digital signature analysis. Every grant helps law enforcement better detect and prove forgery cases. Grandma and I remain extremely close. This experience actually brought us closer together. She tells people that having a forensic document examiner granddaughter saved her from complete financial ruin, that my professional expertise was the only thing that stopped Ashley from stealing everything, that she's grateful every day that I had the training to catch the forgery. I tell her I was just doing my job, but using it to protect someone I love made it more meaningful than any other case I've worked. This is my story. I'm Dr. Catherine Hayes, 48 years old, forensic document examiner with 26 years of experience. My granddaughter Ashley forged my 83-year-old grandmother's signature on 47 documents over 3 years to steal $7 million in assets. Ashley practiced forgery techniques, created fake notary stamps, documented her crimes in detailed logs. She thought she'd perfected the forgeries and would never be caught. She forgot that her cousin is an expert in detecting exactly this type of fraud. I used forensic microscopy, ink analysis, pressure pattern examination, stroke sequence analysis, and signature uniformity comparison to prove every single forgery. I found Ashley's practice notebooks and fraud logs. When police searched her residence, Ashley was convicted on 128 felony counts and sentenced to 22 years in prison with minimum 18 before parole. All fraudulent documents were voided and Grandma's assets were restored. Ashley is serving year 1 knowing she destroyed her life by forging signatures while a forensic document examiner was in the family. She chose the worst possible victim and paid the ultimate price. Justice for Grandma Margaret was served completely.